and I actually wanted to own less. I kind of removed myself from always wanting bigger house and nicer cars and all those things. And that's when I started wondering, like, hey, like, what is my infatuation with money? Like, if I don't need a lot of money to buy a lot of stuff, then what is the role that money is going to play in my life?
This show is dedicated to helping you strengthen your family tree and live financially free. Welcome to the Marriage, Kids, and Money podcast, everybody. This is Andy Hill, and today we're talking about overcoming the distraction of money. Yes, money can help us do a lot of important things. It can allow us to have our most basic needs met, and it can allow us to buy more time freedom to enjoy more life today. But can we become too distracted by money? Can the pursuit of more money and more wealth distract us from a life of meaning today? To help us explore this topic further, I've invited Joshua Becker on the podcast today. Joshua and his young family were introduced to minimalism 12 years ago during a short conversation with their neighbor, and he became a pioneer of the Modern Minimalist Movement with his blog, Becoming Minimalist, which reaches over 1 million readers every month. He is also the USA Today best-selling author of 5 books, including his latest, which is called Things That Matter. When Joshua isn't helping people find more meaning in their lives, he enjoys spending time with his wife and 2 teenage children. Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Oh, good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. I've enjoyed your book. I'm excited to talk more about it today. But this conversation around the distraction of money definitely piqued my interest, given that this is a family finance show. So why do you believe money can be a distraction for people?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Even hearing you go through the intro and talking about how when we have more money, we can buy more things. We can even buy more time. Harvard did a fascinating study where they were trying to figure out, does money buy happiness, and like trying to finally have the definitive voice on that, because you find all these different studies where it has no impact. It has an impact up to 20,000, impact up to 75,000. Some studies say that there's no limit to the amount of impact that you can have. And what they concluded at the end, they surveyed 100,000 adults. And what they concluded at the end is the greatest deciding factor of if money contributes to happiness or not is what we sacrifice in pursuit of money. And because a lot of people get into this mindset that says, well, I'm just going to put in the extra hours now so I can enjoy more time later. I'm going to do the side hustle now. I'm going to give up things now so I have the money so I can finally go do all the things that I want to do. When that is the thinking, number one, most people never get to that point where they think that they have enough money to go do all the things that they want to do. But that was the biggest contributing factor to if money equals happiness or not. If we give up things that are more important to us in constant pursuit of more money, that this is when it doesn't result in more happiness than if we had just pursued the things that were more meaningful at the very beginning.
I think that's a really good point. I've definitely found myself in that in the past, thinking, okay, well, if I work harder now and build more wealth now, I'll be able to be a more present father later on. And that'll help me be a better dad. And with that mindset, it just sort of continues to delay and delay. Have you heard that sentiment? Yeah.
Yes, because we never get there. 90% of Americans say that they have financial related stress, was the newest stat that I could find from CNBC. 87% of millionaires would say that they're not wealthy. There was a great Boston College study of the ultra wealthy and average net worth of $78 million. And the average response was that they still needed 25% more to feel content and to feel secure. And so the problem that I've discovered, or what I think the problem is because it's certainly not 90% of us struggle with not having enough money. There are certainly people in the world who don't have enough money, but it's not 90% of Americans. We're one of the wealthiest nations in the history of the world. So why are we so stressed about money? And it's because there is no numerical value to when we feel secure with money or when we feel happy with money. we think if I just was making that much money, or if I had that much saved, I would feel happy, I would feel secure, I would finally have the time to go spend with family or invest in the things that matter. But in reality, we get to that next level. You can probably attest to this. I know I can attest to my life. We get to that next income level. We get to that next amount of net worth, and we don't feel like we have the margin to go spend time with family. We don't feel like we're as happy as we could be if we had more money. And so rather than questioning, hey, is money actually the place where I'm going to find happiness and security? We just change the number of how much we need. And I just needed to make that much, or I need to have that much saved. The race never ends. And I think that's why 90% of us feel stressed. We keep looking for money to provide something it will never provide.
I feel that so much.
How's that? How's that for a heavy start? Let's just jump right in, huh?
That's the problem for us to talk about it. Maybe we can talk about a solution then. Well, let's talk about your history with this, because I know you've had this mindset for 12 years now. You said 12 years ago you discovered minimalism. Was there a time before that where maybe you were kind of racing to get the next dollar amount, the next net worth thing, and didn't feel that contentment?
Yes and no. Yes, to the extent that I would say, I think I still struggle even today. Like, I hope I'm not putting out the aura that I've somehow solved this in my life and that I'm self-righteous, looking down on everyone else, prideful, arrogant. As I write in the book, these are distractions that we not just recognize, but we have to overcome every single day going forward, just because we live in a world and a culture that pursues all these things that even in ourselves, I think there's some internal motivations there. And so I was not like in the typical rat race, I guess. As a young adult, I was a pastor for 15 years. And so I certainly didn't choose that career because of the high paychecks. Like, I chose a career where I thought I could have meaning, and I thought I would have an influence in people's lives and could help people. And so I never chose a career based on money, as much as I was back then, as even struggle today with, hey, what else could I do to make more money? Always constantly wanting more and more. I think that's pretty common for all of us.
That's, as you said, very common for a lot of people. I know that you have pursued, and this is your part of your mission really is this minimalist movement. Is there, I guess, a financial side of things? I'm just wondering for that side.
Yeah, maybe I'll even step back to that, because minimalism certainly brought this conversation, I think, to mind, or started helping me think about it. Introduced to minimalism, over a decade ago by my neighbor. And I was certainly in the pretty typical suburban lifestyle of buying things I didn't need. I did have a couple pay increases over the first 10 years of my marriage, and just bought a bigger house when we moved to a new city, and just did, I think, what most people live their life, buying stuff they don't need. And so it was my neighbor who introduced me to minimalism. It was a Saturday morning. I was clean out my garage, and rather than playing with my 5-year-old son while he was alone in the backyard, and I'm like, man, how am I wasting my life just taking care of stuff and buying stuff and always wanting more stuff rather than investing in the things that actually matter to me? And so as we purposefully began owning less stuff, we got rid of about 60-70% of our things. The less I owned, and the more I discovered owning less frees up money and time and energy and focus for the things that actually matter in life. I became content to own less, and I actually wanted to own less. I kind of removed myself from always wanting bigger house and nicer cars and all those things. And that's when I started wondering, what is my infatuation with money? If I don't need a lot of money to buy a lot of stuff, then what is the role that money is going to play in my life? When I started, I think, diving into my own motivations a little bit and started questioning some of these statistics and stats, and man, how many commercials on television are just all about having more money or getting more money, saving for retirement. I'm like, man, so much of our conversation is about just getting more money all the time. When is enough enough? So that was certainly what sparked that conversation.
You exactly answered my question there. And I think a big part of what my takeaway was there is that a lot of these things, or a lot of these goals, or these money goals, can become distractions. They can fill up our brain with other things that we are thinking about that we need to do and not move us towards that meaning that I believe you are hoping that we're moving towards. So talk to us a little bit about when we clear this space, when we clear this energy in our brain, how we can move towards things that matter.
Good question. And so true. When we start clearing that space of pursuing possessions or pursuing money, pursuing fame, like pursuing all those things that we're told will make us happy, what's left? When I first started writing about minimalism, and I still do, I'll say, hey, minimalism is essentially about owning fewer things so you can pursue your greatest passions in life. Because no one's greatest desire in life is just to own a house full of clutter. Like I don't even think if you sit across the table from somebody and ask them, hey, what is your greatest goal in life? Nobody says, I just want to have as much money as I possibly can. Like we all talk about love, we talk about relationships, we talk about making a difference in the world, we talk about solving problems in the world. Like this is what our greatest passions are. And so when I introduce people to minimalism, I'll just say, hey, like you can free up your resources to pursue whatever you most value in life. However you want to define that, owning less will allow you to do more of it. I believe that to be true. That is the best way to approach that conversation and to make the case for owning less. I stop short oftentimes, well, at least I did before this book a little bit, stop short of, yes, you can pursue anything you want with your newfound freedom. But all the studies will tell you that when you live a life that helps others, when you live a life that serves others, when you live a generous life, when you live a life that works to solve a problem that you're passionate about solving, that every study shows that at the end of your life, those who have chosen to live a life for the sake of others self-report more meaning, more fulfillment, more happiness with the way that they live their lives. When we remove the pursuit of money, when we remove the pursuit of possessions, what do we find next? I think you can go find whatever you want. You can go lay on a beach for the rest of your life if you want. But I think that if you choose to live your life solving a problem that you see in the world, you will always reach the end with fewer regrets and more fulfillment. And I'll just hop in. I mean, some people hear me say that and they think, well, we're not all going to have a blog that reaches 1 million people. We're not all going to start a nonprofit. And that's not what I'm saying. Like, sometimes the greatest contribution that you can bring to the world is the children that you raise. And my wife has stayed at home with our 2 children ever since my son was born. And so like she's done as much to impact the world as I have, just in a very different way. So
I hear you. And as I was going through the book, I had a lot of those moments. I'm like, okay, well, what's the nonprofit I'm going to start? Or what? And then I just thought about my stage in life with young kids. I'm like, I think a major part of my meaning right now is to be that present dad that can help my kids have a great life, because it's easy to make children, but it's very hard to raise them and make sure that they have a good life. And I had a lot of introspective moments there. One part of the book that was very interesting to me was this story of Daniel Suelo, I think his name is. I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about Daniel and his philosophy of life, just to give us an example. I guess removing all. I'll let you take the reins.
I forget the details of where I first read his story. Well, I know where I read his story. I was in an airport in Charlotte, and for some reason, an article popped up about Daniel Suelo, the man who quit money. And his story, he lives up in Utah, and his whole story is that he quit money in a phone booth. I think he put all of his money and he walked away, and he went out, and his goal was to live with having no money. And so he did some foraging and some dumpster diving and like grew some food. I forget all the details about where he ate, but basically he chose to live with no money. But there was an email address for him. And so like just trying to map out how does this work, So I sent an email. I'd been writing about minimalism and owning less, and here's this guy, and he decided to live with no money whatsoever. And I'm like, I gotta talk to him. And so I email him, and he emails me back, and lo and behold, he visits a public library once a week or so, and is able to use the library, use the computer, and access his email. And so I'm like, man, I just want to interview you, for my blog. And so he shared a little bit about his story and some of his views about money and why he was doing what he was doing, part environmental in nature, part spiritual in nature, part just trying to challenge societal norms and expectations of what we need to live a happy life. And so that's his story. He lives without money. And a combination of, I think he lives out in a cave, lives out in the wilderness, and also has some friends that let him stay, I suppose, during the winter or whatever it might be. But yeah, it's a fascinating story. And I told him when I interviewed him, I'm like, most people aren't going to go do what you're doing, but can you just share what you've learned in a way that can help a pretty typical person who's not going to leave all their money in a phone booth and go live in the cave.
And did he have a takeaway that really resonated with you?
I walked away even a little more convinced that we don't need as much money as we think we need. It probably helps solidify some of this assumption of how much do we need to feel secure and how much money do we need to live a happy, meaningful life. He made a great comment one time. He said, money only exists because two people believe it does. Otherwise, it's just a sheet of paper. And the only value is the fact that you value this sheet of paper. I don't know if it's economically true all the way, although it probably was the way we do money nowadays. It's only there because you want it and you'll trade whatever you have so you can get more of it. And so, certainly some helpful principles and ideas there.
Yeah, I like the example because I don't know, maybe it's just me. I like to look at the extremes and then try to find this sort of magic middle for myself. So I think of, although I appreciate what Daniel is doing, that's a bit extreme for somebody like myself with a wife and two kids and a home and responsibilities that I need to attend to. But then I also see the opposite extreme of maybe the father that's working 100-hour weeks and doesn't see his family at all and prides himself on the nice car and the more. So I guess as we're looking at it, Daniel Suelo and the 100-hour work week man, how do we find that magic middle? Or how would you find that magic middle, Joshua?
I don't think there are easy answers to it. I think that this brings in a lot of other conversations and a lot of different factors. There's a whole chapter in the book about work and viewing work correctly. I'm not saying we all stop working and just be content with what we have, because I think that work, when we view work is love. Like, I do what I'm good at, you do what you're good at, you do this podcast that helps people figure out their money and teaches these principles so that they can go do what they're good at and have what they need at home. And so I'm not saying that we all stop working. I'm saying that we view work differently, and I don't turn down a pay raise if someone gives it to me. When we serve other people well is when we get compensated for it. So all that to say, a lot of different factors. I think probably I'll give two first steps. When I transitioned into writing full-time, my wife and I sat down and we listed out every fixed expense that we had. What was the mortgage payment? What was health insurance going to be? What was the food that we needed for the family of four? What are utilities? This is how much we spend every single month. If we cut out all the frivolous things, this is how much money we need to get by. This was 10 years ago, and it was $4,000 a month. And it became a little bit of a magic number for us, where, okay, if we make $48,000 a year, that is enough for us to get by. It doesn't mean we get to go on super nice vacations. I don't even know if it means we get to keep cable, but we can get by on this amount of money. And I think it was a really helpful process just to say, okay, I don't have to strive to make more money than this if this is all that I need to get by. So that's the first thing that I would encourage people to do. And then the second thing is to give some money away and to do it consistently. Honestly, I think the greatest benefit of generosity to our lives is the realization that we already have enough. I would encourage anybody, I don't know how many of your listeners are probably giving to charity, probably a good portion already. But if you don't give anything, give away $5 a week. Like, just find a charity, give away $5 a week. You'll you'll find at the end of every week that you still have food, you still have shelter, you still have clothing. You had $5 extra every single week that you could give away, and you could still provide for your family up at to 10. Or if you're giving away some money, give away $5 extra, whatever it might be. Because I think when you start doing that consistently, you start realizing, hey, not only do I have enough coming in to survive, I have enough coming in that I can actually give some away. And then, of course, you can fall into the trap of, well, let's go make more money so I can give away more, which never works out that way. But, hopefully the learning is, you know what? Why do I have to fight for a job raise? Why do I have to take on a side hustle? Why do I have to sacrifice more hours a week away from my family when in actuality, I have enough that I can even give some away?
I love that. I love that. And you talked a bit about finding work that calls to your heart, that serves, that gives back. Now, somebody's listening right now and they're saying, I am doing work. I might not be doing that type of work that makes me feel like I'm serving or giving back to others, but I want to in the future. What's a step that they could take, whether it's today or over the next years, to move towards work that maybe feels more meaningful and of service?
Your first step is to reevaluate the job that you currently have and begin to see it not as the thing you do for the paycheck, but how does my work benefit other people? Because in almost every scenario, you don't love every aspect of your job. Maybe you don't love all of the values of the board, whatever it might be. In your specific position, what you're doing is helping other people. You're providing customer support to someone. You're leading a team of people. You're developing a technology. You're dentist. You're landscaper. You're driving truck. Like, what you are doing is helping people, almost certainly. And when you can put your finger on, okay, I'm a cashier at the grocery store. Well, what I do is I help the farmer get food from the field to this family's table, and I help that family give the money to the farmer so that he can support his family. Like, begin to see that connection. And I think that you'll find a little more value in your work. And that doesn't mean that you have to keep doing your job for the rest of your life, but I wouldn't say hold off until you think you find your perfect dream job, because there are no perfect dream jobs. Even roses have thorns, and some things that you're always going to have to be doing are stuff that you don't necessarily want to be doing. But don't hold your joy till that moment. Find it today, and find the selfless nature of the work that you're doing and how it benefits others, and then get up in the morning and go serve others through your work, rather than just trying to get the paycheck to buy the stuff.
I love that because it talks about what we can do today. And really, there's a lot of times where people think, well, I'm going to get it in 10 years. I'm going to get it in 20 years. Then I'll be happy. It's up to us and our mindset that we go into each day for us to work on that happiness. And I know you talked about that it's not a magic switch. It's something that you're still practicing on a daily basis. For somebody's writing books about this and writing blogs about it. It's a daily practice. I liken it to gratitude, where you go into each day, and maybe you've got a negative mindset or something that's happened today and it feels, this day is horrible. But if we keep practicing gratitude, keep practicing what we do have in our lives, it becomes that much easier. Maybe not solved, but that much easier. Joshua, this book is fantastic. I've had a chance to enjoy my week listening to it on my walks. Tell people more about it and where they can get it.
The new book is called Things That Matter: Overcoming Distraction to Pursue a More Meaningful Life. I think when most people hear the book title, they think, oh, good, because I need to put my phone away. And there is a chapter on technology and how the trivial becomes a distraction. But certainly, I would think based on this conversation, people realize it goes into much deeper topics than just putting the phone away. It questions the role that the possessions, the value that we put on possessions and money, fame, accolades, leisure. There's even chapters on fear and past mistakes and regret. We did a nationwide study to kind of discover what some of these are. 77% of people say that they spend time and resources on things that are a distraction from things that actually matter in their life. And so I like to think the book applies to 77% of the population. So that would be wonderful. And it's available everywhere. Can certainly be found. I should have asked when you're going to air this, because I do before we start. But I just saw someone just sent me a photo of a Barnes and Noble, and Things That Matter was on the great gifts for grads table. That was kind of a new thing to me when the book came out, and people started saying, hey, this would be a great book for 18-year-olds to read. And I always say it's a great book for all of us to read, but you're right, it is a great book for anyone of any age.
This episode is going to come around right around Independence Day, so I mean, I talk about appropriate title for that right around that time frame. Absolutely. Joshua, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.